Welcome everybody to this morning's panel. This morning's panel is on ESPN and social media. We have two wonderful speakers this morning with us who are both alums of the College of Communication and Information. Ryan McGee, he is a graduate of journalism and electronic media. He graduated in '93. He currently is located in Charlotte. And you probably have most recently seen him on the Book of Manning. He was a contributor on that. We also have Gracie Blackburn with us, who graduated in '08 from the School of Advertising and Public Relations. And she is the manager, I want to make sure I get this right, college manager for ESPN Networks in ESPN's communications department. So we're very thrilled to have both of them here to speak with us on social media. Just a quick reminder, today at 12:30, we will be having a meet and greet with Paul Feinbaum. So if you would like to get your picture made with him and say hello, please come upstairs to Scripps. He will be up there. Also, this is social media week, so please be tweeting, Facebooking, Instagramming during the session. Gracie and Ryan both will be asking questions during the session. And some of them may have to do with Twitter and other things. So make sure you are following both of them on Twitter to win some great prizes. And with that, I will turn it over to Ryan.
Is this on? No? Okay, it is on screen. I already have not mastered the technology. Everybody doing okay? I was just, Dr. Swan, my all-time favorite professor, he and I were just chatting, and I've sent this link out to all the people I went to school with, because the fact that I'm here talking in this room is pretty hilarious, because I posted some good grades in this room, but I think if you pull the transcript, maybe I posted some that weren't great. But anyhow, but it's great to be back. And my wife is a Tennessee grad as well, met her here in Circle Park. And now we have a 9-year-old. Her name is Tara, which is Irish for Rocky Mountain. So we named our daughter Rocky Top McGee. And but it's great to be back, and great to be here with Gracie. It's funny, Gracie and I just met for the first time at the SEC Championship, right? Yeah, we had, talking about social media, at ESPN has gotten so large now. I've been with ESPN for the most part the last 20 years. And it's gotten so big now that I have like these electronic relationships with people that I've never actually met. Adam Musa, who is a recent grad here and works for ESPN the magazine, he and I have a strictly electronic relationship. We met last night at Calhoun's for the first time in person. But you feel like you're a friend with the guy because we talk all the time. And the same with Gracie. Gracie and I communicate back and forth 100 different ways digitally, but had never actually met till we were at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta when they were making some of the big SEC network announcements. Yeah, it's great to be here. What I'm going to talk about is I'm a senior writer for ESPN the magazine. Occasionally when they run out of people to put on television, they will put me on TV. And the question is, from a writer's perspective, from an on-air, we call it talent. I don't like using that word, but we call it on-air talent. From that perspective, how do we use social media? And we had a gentleman from ESPN last night who, I guess, essentially he's our social media guru. Was that what we call him? Yes. Yeah. And as you all know, ESPN is so massive, and it's been interesting for me, having started at ESPN right out of BUT basically in 1994. The company that's when the company was taking off. It was in the mid-'90s, and that's kind of got it to the platform it is now. I remember when ESPN.com was. You guys may know Bruce Feldman, who was a former coworker of mine. He's a college football writer for CBSSports.com now, and I remember when ESPN.com was Bruce Feldman and two other guys in a cubicle. And it was called ESPNnet.com, ESPN Sportsnet, yeah, and we all laughed because we were like, what are these lunatics doing? Because my roommate over here at Gibbs Hall my senior year introduced me to the internet. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So you're communicating with people at other colleges, this is never going to work. And clearly that I'm a genius. But as ESPN has grown, and it was fascinating for me to hear this presentation last night at Calhoun's, for those of you that were there, how ESPN and this massive company handles social media and how it changes. I mean, every month there's a new potential outlet they have to look at, and there's this massive mission that they have. Well, I look at myself and I look at other, writers, on-air talent, whoever, editors at ESPN the magazine, is our little corners of how to handle that. And it's this massive community of millions and millions and millions, and my community is some thousands. And I want to take care of my thousands so that I can help ESPN with the millions. And it's an interesting way to go about things. And over the last few years, it's stunning how much has changed. But this is the title, "Hey honey, quit looking at your damn phone," which is my wife's quote, or how Ryan McGee uses social media. And I feel like this is, if you were to talk to a lot of writers, on-air talent, this is pretty common. I think of these things, but this is how I use it. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Quite frankly, the Facebook page I don't do a lot with because I just have a lot more followers on Twitter. And I think I got in on Twitter earlier. I got in on Facebook on a personal level almost in the beginning. It was something that someone had sent me a link to, and I got involved. But I need to do a little bit better on the professional side. But Twitter's really where I live, social media wise. Google Plus, I use it all the time. Marty Smith, who a lot of you may recognize he's the redheaded Woody Woodpecker looking guy that's on SportsCenter. Marty and our best buddies, we do a podcast together, and we try to do it in the studio when we can, but when we can't, we do it through Google. We did it just a couple weeks ago. I was in a hotel room in Fontana, California, and Marty was somewhere working on another report, and our producer was in Bristol, Connecticut, and we had a guest call in from his house in North Carolina. So, now you can, I'll let you know a little insider, this Google Plus thing, some of the ESPN radio programs are done this way. Dari and Mel, Dari Noka, and my great friend, kind of the anchor on ESPNU, and you guys, this time of year, everybody knows Mel Kiper Jr., he's our draft guy. The two of them host a radio show together, not even in the same city. And this is a common thing. And if you listen to Sirius XM radio, very rarely are the anchors there, and a lot of times it's through Google Plus. And then Vimeo and YouTube, I write a lot of script for things that I don't voice. You won't hear my voice, but you'll hear kind of our voice of God narrators. For some college football stuff for ESPNU, and then also I write. If you ever watch any motorsports events on ESPN, the teases, the little bumpers when we come back from break. This kind of voice of God gets you fired up for what's going to happen next. I write those scripts, and I don't see the video because I'm not in the edit suite because those folks are in Bristol, Connecticut, and I'm in Charlotte where I live. But constantly online between Vimeo and YouTube, they'll send me clips, and I'll write to those clips, and it could be a piece of music, or it could be a voice, or it could be something that I can tailor my script writing to do that. So this is kind of where I am. I have an Instagram account that I don't ever use. I have accounts across several platforms that I kind of sit on because I'm still trying to figure out, and honestly don't have a lot of time between work and a 9-year-old daughter to figure out the best way to tie it all together, and that's something I'm going to work on, better in the future. But really, where I make my living, social media wise, is on Twitter. And feel free to follow me at ESPN McGee. What I use it for. This is an example. This was about a week ago, and you'll see what I'll do is, first and foremost, promoting projects that I'm working on. Not a selfish thing, that's a company thing. If I don't get it out there, there's so much content now, particularly, and we talk about this all the time with ESPN.com, we're cranking out so much content on so many different platforms that it's kind of up to not just the company, but also the writer to, I'm not a toot your own horn guy, but I do want you to read it. And I do want you, if I've been working on a feature or I've been working on something, I do want you to read that. And so it's promoting, what we're working on. Live blogging games and races. For years, when I wrote for FoxSports.com and then obviously with ESPN, I would live blog motorsports events, Indy 500, Daytona 500, whatever, but I would also do college football. And we would do big chat rooms. Well, as chat rooms have kind of slowed down a little bit, now we do it through Twitter, and we tie Twitter into through Scribble Live and through some other platforms. We live tweet events as if it's a chat, and so we interact with people. We do it through social media, but also through a chat room. We kind of weave those together. So instead of just taking a writer and saying, "All right, we want you to spend 4 hours tonight live tweeting Monday Night Football or live blogging Monday Night Football," now it's kind of a blog /tweet thing. And there's some interesting interactions that happen during that. Taking you with me. I'm a big fan of taking pictures. Not selfies, although I did do one with Johnny Majors last night. But I love to take people into places you can't go. You know, I did a story last year on Marcus Lattimore, a running back from South Carolina, and got to hang out with Marcus for a couple of weeks. A rehab at Dr. Andrews' place down in Pensacola, Florida, a pro day at South Carolina, you know, what he was doing during the draft. And, you know, as a magazine writer, you don't want to give up what you're doing entirely, but you want to tease a little bit. And by posting pictures and taking fans places that they can't go, you know, Dr. Andrews, for folks that don't know, this is the rehab place, you know, for the athletes. This is where Adrian Peterson went. This is where, you know, everybody goes to get rehab from these previously devastating injuries. That's where Marcus Lattimore was getting ready for the draft last year. Well, that thing is locked down, like more than the Pentagon. And so the fact that they let me in there, and I asked for permission, and they did let me post pictures of Marcus doing this, and it got a lot of traffic because, again, these are things that you're not going to see, and it does a lot of things. It lets you in behind closed doors. It also promotes, you know, whatever I'm working on, but it also makes you feel like you're getting into places that you wouldn't normally get to go. Writing research. This is the most underrated part of social media for me. And I'm going to sound like an old man when I say this, but, you know, I went to college, Dr. Swan, before Google. You know, I'd go over to the stacks and spend all day looking stuff up or go through newspapers and these types of things. And Twitter has taken this to a whole new level. The ability to follow athletes. I'm working on a story right now for ESPN Magazine's NFL Draft issue about a kid named Pierre Desir. And Pierre is a Division II defensive back from Lindenwood University outside of St. Louis. And on the same day that Johnny Manziel was having his zoo of a pro day down at Texas A&M, I was at Lindenwood where Pierre Desir was one of 3 kids working out, the only one that's going to get drafted for 7 scouts, and we were the only ones there. And I'm working on this story. Well, I had already established a relationship with his agent through Twitter, and I had already established a relationship with some of his family members through Twitter, and I knew what Pierre was doing on a daily basis through Twitter. And so before I even went out there, I had an idea of, you know, while Johnny Manziel's hanging out with Drake, Pierre Desir is eating at Applebee's. And while Jadeveon Clowney is in New York and is in Times Square and hanging out with whoever, you know, Pierre Desir is taking care of his 2 kids. And I knew this before I even got there. And the reason was because I was following him on Twitter. So social media opens these windows for you journalistically that you wouldn't have. Now, there's a two-edged sword there, because as these guys become professionals, they want you to be, this is the only way they're going to let you know what's going on. And so it makes it harder as a writer sometimes, because they're like, well, I put it on Twitter, so why am I going to talk to you about this? But if you catch the right people at the right time, and this is the right time, I think, we haven't quite crossed that threshold yet, but it helps you get a little window, you know, into their world, as long as they're the ones running their account. If they're PR guys running their account or somebody else running their account, then yeah, come on, PR people. You don't know it. Following colleagues. Twitter is a library for me. As far as, you know, I put Mobile Sports Library right here. Instant access to, you know, stories that are being written by colleagues, no matter who they work for, and that's a research tool. You know, as a journalist, and also as an ESPN employee, we've gotten so big now. The best way for me to keep track of what my colleagues are working on, because we're scattered. At ESPN the magazine, we have probably 12 senior writers, and we live in 12 different cities and, you know, all 4 time zones. Now I can kind of keep track of what they're doing, you know, just by following them on Twitter. Tracking scores, obviously, college football on Saturday, this has changed the entire experience for me. I'm also a college baseball guy, and it was frustrating for decades. You couldn't follow college baseball because there were nowhere to see all the scores. Now, through Twitter, I know what's going on all the time, and to me, that's a huge thing. And then engaging the public's mind. And you have to kind of walk a tightrope here, but it gives you an idea of what people are thinking and what they want to hear, what they want to read, the stories they might be interested in, and the stories they're not interested in. Now, you got to take some of that with a grain of salt, because you know, if you follow Twitter, nobody ever wants to read anything because there's a lot of complaining out there. We'll get to that in a minute. But it does help you gauge. We talked about this last night at the ESPN presentation. It helps you understand what people are looking for, and they want something that they're not getting anywhere else, is basically. In direct interaction with readers and industry people, we'll get into a little bit more, but that's that's again, that's a huge asset. I use Gracie as an example. Gracie and I met through Twitter. You know, Adam Musa I mentioned earlier, he and I were friends through Twitter before we actually had ever met in person. So, and this is ESPNU. This was our grade 8 show, which is you guys should watch that in the fall because it's fun. And Tom Luganville wears awesome belt buckles. And totally based on. So we started grade 8 with this hashtag, and basically on a Monday, you take the 8 best plays from the weekend. And these are plays that are determined by Twitter users through the ESPNU account, and then we set up a bracket-style competition. And then once you put that out there, it's a combination of whatever we have a kind of a rotating panel, but whatever group of us is out on the set talking about the plays, but then also feedback that we're getting during the show based on that. And about that interaction, I kind of clipped and pasted some stuff. I give you some examples. I wrote a story a couple weeks ago about the 5 coaches, football coaches who are in make or break years. This is for ESPN.com Insider. Travis Haney, another Tennessee grad. He and I are the 2 college football writers for that site. And, you know, this is what I hear all the time from my tweets. I love your work. I don't get that a lot, but every now and then. Who's going to win this weekend? Football, racing, doesn't matter. You get that a lot, and it has a lot to do with fantasy sports. Why do you hate my team? Why don't you defend our team? Love Tennessee. I get this on a daily basis because, as you all know, ESPN hates Tennessee, even though we got about 50 grads working in the building. I'll tell you a story. I graduated here in 93, and 4 years later, Peyton Manning is trying to win the Heisman. And I come back as a field producer with Steve Cyphers, who was one of our – and I hadn't been back on campus, and they just started the Vol Walk. When I was a student, we didn't have that. And Peyton Manning is coming to the stadium for the last regular season game against Vanderbilt. Charles Woodson is at Michigan, and he's playing Ohio State the same day. I have on an ESPN jacket. I have on my Tennessee class ring, which I don't have on right now. And people are throwing stuff at me and just screaming at me. ESPN hates UT. I hear that every day. I've heard it ever since. I think it goes back to the Manning thing. But, you know, and everybody in the Big Ten now thinks we hate them. So it's just everybody thinks you hate their team, but I particularly get it from Tennessee people. Once the word got out that I was a Tennessee grad, and Travis Haney, Paul Feinbaum, you know, being Mr. Alabama, when people find out that he's a Tennessee grad, it adds a whole other layer to that mess.
And it's literally a losing battle because if you pick Tennessee to win something,
you're a homer.
You're a homer
right.
to everybody else. And if you pick them not to win, well, you have no loyalty to your school.
Yeah, exactly. So, now I say all the time, I'm here today with my orange tie on because I love my school. But when I'm in the press box, I'm not allowed to love anybody, as far as y'all know. I hated that story that you didn't actually write. I get this a lot. And there's really 2 layers to this. The first is that was the worst story I've ever read about so-and-so and so-and-so. And I'm like, man, I didn't write that story. You know, that was Schleybaugh, or that was Travis Haney, or that was one of our other college football writers. And the other thing is a lot of times people react to headlines. Everybody at Ohio State hates my guts. And the reason is because we did, at ESPN the magazine, all of our issues are themed. And we did the busted issue, which was about athletes and schools being busted. And this was in the middle of the Ohio State tattoo stuff. So I wrote a story that was just about the year of scandal in college sports, because it was an awful year. I mean, on every level, every sport. And it was about everybody. And you know, Bruce Pearl was in there. It was about everybody. It wasn't just about Ohio State. But the cover of the magazine, and it was a great cover, but I didn't design it, was Jim Tressel, the since-fired coach at Ohio State. It was his famous red sweater. And they had replaced the Ohio State logo with a big B that said busted. And everybody at Ohio State to this day, I work with people at Nationwide Insurance because of motorsports, and they all hate my guts because they think I wrote it. Read the story, and Ohio State was really a small part of it. So I hated that story you didn't actually write, or I hated the headline that you didn't actually write. You have a factual error. I get this a lot. Right here, you might want to have the folks at ESPN.com check the Sprint Cup standings. I get this stuff a lot. Please help my cause, follow me, get me a job. Usually these aren't even real people. I love you. These are usually not real people either. I'm going to kill you. Unfortunately, these are really usually real people. And legit questions. That's my favorite part of it. My favorite part is if I'm stuck in an airport, it just put out there. I'm headed to Fontana for the Sprint Cup race this weekend. What you got? I see Book of Manning's on TV. What you got? And almost instantly you get questions, and that's a chance for interaction with folks that, quite frankly, didn't exist. And then random, what the hell? I get that a lot too. I had one. I posted a picture of myself with Johnny Majors last night, and I got some guys already. You love Johnny Majors, and he shouldn't have won the Heisman in 1956. I'm like, he didn't win the Heisman in 1956. That's a huge thing of mine. And then the 5,000 follower shift. I have found that there are things you can do at one level of followers that you can't do at the next. And some of that, unfortunately, is direct interaction. As you gain more followers, I mean, I'm a little under 30,000. Like Marty Smith, my buddy, has 120, I think. And I was talking to, Paul's got a ridiculous number. I was talking to Dale Earnhardt Jr. the other day, and he's up to like 750,000 or something. And what they're figuring out is the more you have, the less you can interact, because the trolls are just, if you've got 750,000 followers, 600,000 of them are just trying to get you to fight with them. So we'll get into a little bit of that later. But that's an idea. And I'll say this too, even as you gain more followers, Aaron, Jason, Kevin, those guys were probably my first 200 followers. And I still hear from them all the time. And it's interesting because it is a little bit of a relationship. So drawing lines. You keep your personal and your public separated. I mentioned earlier I have a personal Facebook page, and then I have a professional Facebook page. And it's called social media for a reason. I say this to, my dad's a university president in North Carolina. I say this to students all the time. You guys know this, but you got to watch, because it's called social media because when you put it out there, it's out there. There's no, you can't unscramble that egg. You can delete it, but it doesn't matter. It still lives somewhere. I don't do politics. Luke Russert is a friend of mine at NBC. Politics is his thing. And he and I talk about this all the time. He says he doesn't do sports and I won't do politics because sports gets him into a fight he don't want to be in, and politics gets me into a fight. I wouldn't talk politics with you at lunch today. I just don't do politics anyway. But particularly out in the open these days, it's just not any fun. Don't wrestle with a glue stick. What I mean by that is that don't let the trolls win. Don't let people pull you into a fight. That you can respond once to be cute, but if you start responding 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 times, then they've won. And that's no win to say when. And don't make it personal the other way either. I've read some really terrible things about myself, and I had to train my dad and my brother, who are Irish and naturally very angry. I had to train them to not read the comments section on my stories, because it ain't worth it. I read it sometimes and laugh, but those guys can't do it. They read the comments after a story, man. It'd be a nothing story. And there's 300 comments, and 290 of them are what a moron I am. And it gets very personal, and I had to train my family not to do it. But one of the things I do, too, is this is my daughter, and I've already told you her name is Tara, but in public, that's about as much as you see of her. She's a genius. But I learned a lesson years ago. I wrote a story. I broke a story. It was a NASCAR story. We had a driver fail a drug test. And later on, I broke the story that it was he'd failed the drug test for methamphetamines. Meth. That was a fact. I had seen the court documents. They were provided to me by a source. And I did my due diligence before we put it out there. But that didn't stop his fans from coming to my house. I had to send my family to my dad's house, kept a shotgun by the front door. And what I learned was that I had reached a level I didn't think I would ever reach, which is I'm not famous by any stretch of the imagination, but I got my name and address taken off of Google. And, you don't, there are just certain things, you cross lines. Mark Slabaugh, he's a great college football writer. You guys all know him. He was in the middle of this Auburn Cam Newton stuff. You ever want to kill 5 hilarious minutes? It's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. But Mark having to do a live stand-up outside of Auburn game in the middle of all that stuff. And just it's a shot that somebody else had of all the people yelling at him. And Mark gets home, and his kids are like, "Dad, watch this." And it wasn't funny to him at the time. Now it's a great story. But the point is, you cross over a line. It's that 5,000 follower shift where, some people, it's just not. This should be fun and it should be interesting, and some people want to cross that line. Fights and threats. Then why are you even doing this? This is the slide my wife had me add, because she said, you can't tell everybody's crazy. They're never going on Twitter again. It's not the case. I just want to make sure I got that out there. The interpersonal connections are real and something that's never existed before. You meet people, you interact with people, you learn things that just weren't available. And this is just through Twitter. This isn't even getting onto all these other layers. The good people are really good people. They want to bring you information. You know, they're kind of in this with you. That's the part of it that I like the most. The dummies are actually entertaining. You know, there's a few crazies out there, but some of the stuff that you hear from those guys, like the old man with the cane, that's pretty funny. Visibility and relationships in the world. There is no question that even in a sport like NASCAR, which is only a couple of hundred people that travel every weekend, and I've been covering that sport for 20 years. In the last 5 years, I have a visibility within that garage I've never had before, and I know for a fact it's because of social media. I have drivers walking up and talking to me now, and team owners and even athletes from other sports walking up and talking to me that just weren't before, and I know that the reason is because of social media, and that helps you as a writer. It helps you as a journalist because there's a little bit of a connection there where they feel like they know you a little bit, and that always helps. But perhaps most importantly, within the industry, now again, I mentioned the garage, being in the press box. You know, I went to the BCS championship game in January, and again, all these people that I have followed forever and have admired forever knew who I was. And that was, not going to lie, that was great. And it helps you, again, it helps you as a writer. If I can pick up the phone and call the beat writer for Ohio State or call the beat writer for another school and they can provide me with information, those are because of relationships or visibility that I had within the sport. Leagues and conferences, I do for ESPN.com Insider, a lot of my college football stuff are kind of off-the-record background information from administrators and from assistant coaches about topics. You know, we did a topic a few weeks ago where the coaches that are on the hot seat. And I got quotes from athletic administrators. I want their name attached to it. But they trust me, and the reason they do is because the first thing they do is they go to Twitter, and they check they Google you. They check and see what you've done in the past, and once they know they can trust you, they'll share their information with you. And then internally, I keep going back to Gracie, but you know, I met her digitally. There are sports center anchors that I had only ever talked to in my ear, you know, doing a live shot somewhere, and I feel like I have relationships with them now because we interact on Twitter. You know, I think about the genuine friends now that I've only seen a couple of times in person, but talk to almost every weekend in my ear, and then interact on Twitter. And this goes for you too. Twitter Twitter in particular, but social media in general, is just a fantastic opportunity to, I mean, Adam Moose is a great example. I'd contact Adam, and I think we had communicated before he even went to work for the magazine. He was just a student here. You know, you guys all follow me, and you know, if I'm got my head on straight, I'll follow you back, and stay in touch. Can't hurt. You know, there's this generation of writers and journalists, broadcasting and writing-wise, that are coming up now that were raised on this. And I'm excited about it. Now, some of the old school scribes, they're resistant a little bit. But to me, it's exciting because you guys, there's a whole other layer to what you get to do. And there's an opportunity to, I mean, the only reason we're here today is because of social media. And there's an opportunity there for you guys to get inroads that, quite frankly, I just didn't have access to back in the day. I put these three things up here on purpose because that up there is me racing bulldozers with A.J. Allmendinger, who's an IndyCar NASCAR driver. He and I went back and forth on Twitter one night about going to Vegas. Hey, have you heard about this bulldozer thing? And we ended up doing a TV package. But that's me taking a selfie, driving a bulldozer, and then that's him whipping my butt. That's him on the hill, me stuck in a hole, racing bulldozers. I did this selfie from the Bristol Motor Speedway maybe 4 years ago. Tony the Tiger was there. And I just took that picture for my daughter. And I was like, yeah, I'll put it on Twitter. And that was actually my profile picture for a little while. Kellogg saw that. And I ended up writing a blog for Kellogg's Racing for a year. And that's me and Carl Edwards in a painfully staged photograph where I'm supposedly showing him the genius of what I'm about to post on Twitter. But that turned into a business opportunity. And it turned into, again, to a relationship that I have with Carl now that we didn't have before. And he'll grab me and give me information. And I just put this up because this is a funny story. I've got a friend, Sean O'Connell, who's a film critic. He was out at Pixar doing a press junket in advance of Monsters University. I was at the Dover International Speedway, and Jimmy Johnson was running a Monsters University paint scheme on his car. I saw on Twitter that Sean was at Pixar going to interview. He said, I'm going to interview Billy Crystal in 10 minutes. Well, I had just seen Jimmy Johnson's car, which you can't really see in this picture, but he had that guy, Mike Wazowski, on his hood. So I took a picture of Jimmy Johnson's car, posted it on Twitter, said, hey, Sean O'Connell, show this to Billy Crystal. Well, he showed it to Billy Crystal in the middle of a live interview, and this thing ran all over the place. And it was Billy holding up the camera and wishing Jimmy Johnson luck, and I think he's telling him to keep his eye on the road. So, but again, these are things that didn't exist. And, you know, if I'm two connections away from Billy Crystal and Tony the Tiger and getting to drive a bulldozer, that alone is worth being on Twitter. So go forth, my fellow Vols, and be social, but remember to pay attention to your wife, because that's what she warns me all the time. Does anybody have any questions before I hand it over to Miss Blackburn? So I did such a great job that there's no questions. All right, Gracie, now tell me all the stuff that I did wrong there.
No, you were great. In fact, I hate to go after you.
Because Gracie's office, I've gotten in trouble one time for a tweet.
Which was, can you share?
I'm not going to get into it. But PETA was not happy.
Oh, yes. Yes, and that is something that my department deals with a lot, is the mistakes that people make on Twitter. And the challenges that it does become, because like Ryan said, you can't delete anything on Twitter, and it is very easy to send 140 characters and not so easy to take them back. But this is me, Gracie Blackburn. Please follow me on Twitter. I work in our communications department. I've worked at ESPN for 3 years now. I worked in New York City before for a PR agency called Coin PR. And I've worked on college sports the entire time I've been at ESPN, and I'm lucky now to be working on the launch of the SEC Network, which I would love to tell anyone about if you have some time afterwards. And we'll get into it a little bit here. But I did want to kind of survey the room for a second to get us started here. Please be honest, who in the last 24 hours has watched ESPN on television? That's a pretty good number. Who in the since this morning has been on social media and seen anything sports related? So that's pretty much the entire room. That is why ESPN does sports. We certainly want you to watch television. We certainly want you to watch live sports on TV, on the biggest, best TV that you can purchase. But we want to be where you are. And where our fans are is on social media. So that's where we're going to be. This is our mission statement. ESPN has had this mission statement for quite some time, and we take it very seriously. Anything that ESPN does or touches, you need to go back and make sure it lines up with our mission statement, which is to serve fans anytime, anywhere. So the anytime is pretty easy. Our TV channels are 24 hours a day. ESPN.com is obviously 24 hours a day. The anywhere is the part that gets a little bit... Did I break it? Oh. The anywhere is where it starts to get interesting. So you're not going to take your huge TV with you everywhere you go. I don't see anybody carrying it with them right now. But we still want to be the leaders. We still want to be where you get your news, no matter where you're consuming that news. So that's why social media is so big for us. The wonderful Stats and Info group sent me with some stats for this presentation. They told me that in the average minute, 5 million people are on some form of social media. And that in 2013, 36 million people tweeted about television. 25% of those tweets were ESPN related. Now that's not the Tennessee Vols on TV, somebody tweeting about the Tennessee score. That's someone actually tweeting about ESPN programming. So that's a huge stat. That's 166 million tweets. These are some other very interesting stats. This is just for the month of February. So I just pulled, we're obviously, as Ryan alluded to, we're on any social media platform that is out there. I pulled 3 main ones that we'll just talk about today, but Vine, Instagram, anything that you have available, we want to be there, and so we are. But for Twitter, just in February, 9.2 million people favorited or retweeted something in the month, and that's up from 10% from December. So that's actually a January stat. But engagement is so key. I'm sure you guys have been hearing about it all week. It's one thing to have 29 million followers. That's great. followers are great, but it really matters who's engaging with your content. That's really what we want to see. And 9.2 million people actually taking that extra step and proactively engaging with your brand and showing that they saw what you put out there and they liked it, or they had an opinion about it, or they wanted to interact with it. That's when you know that you're making a big impact. Facebook, we talk so much about Twitter because Twitter is certainly where sports fans are. It's certainly where you can have a conversation. But Facebook is still so huge, and it's so often forgotten about when we talk about social media because people so focus on Twitter. It's just the new fun toy. But 52 million people on Facebook, I mean, that's huge. It's certainly something we take very seriously and a place where we still see a ton of fans across generations. My grandmother's on Facebook. She's not on Twitter. She doesn't understand Twitter. My mom doesn't understand Twitter, but she does tweet at me. She just puts my name in her status. That's you'll see here if you go to her news page, it's just my name several times over and over again. Gracie _ESPN. And YouTube. So YouTube actually is a very social platform. It's very important to us at ESPN because it is a visual and it is actually content, and we are a content company. So I did want to see, maybe we can get some of those prizes out. Does anybody have any guesses as to what the #1 most viewed ESPN YouTube video is? We can't move on until somebody makes a guess. Yes, sir. Thank you. That is an excellent guess. That is an excellent, excellent guess. It's not, but it's an excellent guess. That is in the top 10. Yes, that is in the top 10. One more guess? Oh, I wish that was what it was. I really do. That's not what it is, but I do wish that's what it was. So I actually have it here. We'll go through a few of them. Yeah. Well, I know the anticipation is killing everyone. There we go. I'm not going to touch it. There we go. Forward. Yep. Next, yes. Press again. One more time. There it is. Yeah. It's tennis. You know what it is? No. It's tennis. It's tennis. We can show it right now. And it's not what you would think it is. When I knew it was tennis, I thought maybe, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, there was the longest match ever in tennis. It went on for days between these two guys. I thought it might be that. That's not what it is. Has anybody seen this? Raise their hands. I love it. It was incredible. It's incredible. Okay, another one on the list. There's tennis. ESPN the magazine interview. We have an ESPNer right here in the room. So live sports is obviously something that is really important to us and something that we think is really important to our fans and our viewers. But this is equally important. ESPN, does anybody know what ESPN actually stands for? It is an acronym. Yes, the Entertainment Sports Programming Network. So entertainment is the first letter of our name. So this is a very interesting, you guys are all going to recognize who's in this. Anybody guess? Any guesses of who is in this interview? Yes, ma'am. Yes, it's Peyton Manning.
Hello, America, Mexico, and Canada. This is Ron Burgundy. My guest today is none other than future America.
Oh, there we go. Oh. Okay, well, we get the picture. Number 5 is the Jadeveon Clowney, whoever had that guess earlier. Thank you. Another reason why we know the SEC Network will be such a great business decision for us. This is the number 5 video of all time on ESPN is the Clowney hit, which happened in the South Carolina game. And then number 9 on our list is a This Is SportsCenter ad. Anybody here? We won't try and show it just to to give you less of a headache, sir. But This Is SportsCenter is a great example of another thing we do on social media. It's certainly a place for us to share news. It's certainly a place for us to engage with our fans, but it is also a branding opportunity for us. This Is SportsCenter did an ad, a very famous campaign with John Clayton, who works on our NFL coverage. He is famous for standing in front of a green screen, and his head never moves. He has a very, very stable neck. And because of that, you can never see the back of his head. And it became an internet sensation that John Clayton might have a ponytail. And there was like this niche community of people that were tweeting about it. There were blogs. There were, people started trying to diagram his segments and point out where maybe the ponytail could exist. He's a very, let's call him an astute-looking person. He does not look like your average jock. And so we actually developed an advertising campaign all based around what had come out of social media and the blogosphere about this idea that he was a man with a ponytail. And you see him in the commercial, and he gets done with his hit on TV, and he rips out this fake hair and like swirls it around, and he's got heavy metal going in the background. It's a great commercial if you've never seen it. But it's number 9 on our most viewed. Out of all the clips you could watch, out of all the segments you could see, all the sports, I mean, it is millions and millions of people have watched that commercial, which just goes to show you what a huge branding opportunity all of our social channels are for us, in addition to just a great place to view content. So I did want to talk about the SEC Network because it is an opportunity for us. ESPN has been around for 30 years now. Social media obviously has not, but our channels are very well established. The ESPN Facebook page, the ESPN Twitter account have millions of followers and are very established. But this is our new baby. This is brand new. This is from the ground level up, building followers, building a brand voice, building content. And so I hope you all take the opportunity to follow it, because I think it would be a great learning opportunity to see what we can do here. Here's some of the things we've done already. This network doesn't launch until August 14th. So it'll be on your TV on August 14th, but right now it does exist in the social sphere. We have a Twitter page and a Facebook page. These are some of the things our Twitter page has done so far. So they're already interacting with live content, live events. They might not be on the SEC Network yet, but they're certainly events that SEC fans care about. So you'll see them tweeting about different things that have happened over the past year. We break news on the Twitter feed. So we hired Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow will be on our show SEC Nation every Saturday from 10 to noon. That tweet in the first hour, I think, got 1,000 retweets. And that's just from the SEC Network Twitter feed. That's not from a feed that was established and had a ton of followers. It just started being shareable. So the other thing it's done for us is we have had the opportunity to do a campaign with our social feeds. Our marketing department put this together, and we've used social influencers. Coach Butch Jones, Coach Nick Saban. I didn't. Sorry, I should have known my audience better. But we use our coaches to try and play off this idea of recruiting, which is so big in the SEC landscape, and asked all the coaches to try and recruit fans to be a part of the SEC Network. What's huge for us right now is to get people to go to getsecnetwork.com. We want everyone to go there, see if their television provider currently is carrying the network, and if they're not, let them know that they want the network and they want to watch it on August 14th. So this is a big business reason for us. So social content for us is to serve the fans, but it also serves a business function. And our business function is to serve the fans. So it all comes back around. So what do? I don't have as cool a job as Ryan. Ryan gets to do a lot of fun things, but I do some fun things myself. I'm on our PR team. We have a department of folks, and we use social media in a few different ways. We use it to share news. So all the announcements about ESPN, about our programming, about new initiatives that we have. We're getting ready to open a new studio. We're launching the network. All those kinds of press releases, schedules, announcements. Those are all things that we distribute via digital and via other mechanisms that have been around for a long time. But Twitter has really let us get those to the fans directly. For a long time, we had to go through journalists to tell our story, and now a lot of times we can tell our story ourselves. Issues management is huge, like Ryan alluded to earlier. We are the police in some situations as far as seeing what people are talking about, engaging it, and reacting to it. So Twitter has really helped us kind of see, is this a big deal? Is this something that's not a big deal? Is this something that a few fans are concerned about? Is this something all of our fans are concerned about? So we monitor storylines that way. Viewer response, we have a viewer response within my department, so they handle the phone calls, but also we are able to interact with fans directly on Twitter. If you're tweeting about not being able to see a game, our Fan Central account can get back to you and say, hey, is this why you can't see it? Or tell us more, and we'll try and figure out why you're not seeing the game. Engage with media, as Ryan alluded to throughout his presentation. I mean, I have so many relationships with people within the company and outside of the company that are purely digital relationships, and they exist because I'm on media and you can have those two-way conversations without ever having to see someone in person. Tell behind-the-scenes stories. This is huge. Fans are obsessed with the behind-the-scenes of sports and the behind-the-scenes of ESPN. We're very lucky that people care about what goes on at ESPN, and we have a lot of fun getting to tell those stories with pictures and videos and our blog, ESPN Front Row. So the communications department, we have about 187,000 followers. Two people that you might want to follow that are not myself. Bill Hoffheimer, he's our NFL publicist. He has about 16,000 followers. He's never been on TV. He's not an ESPN personality. He has 16,000 followers just based purely on the news that he's able to share every single day that comes out of our department. And Carrie Potts, who's actually my boss, she's up there as well. They have two very different Twitter personalities, and I think you'll enjoy follow on both of them. But that's just a little glance at what I do, what ESPN does, and what our wonderful talent does. So I would love it if y'all had some questions for Ryan and I, and we could answer them. Yes. Sure.
How did you get into ESPN and ESPN?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I worked at a PR agency in New York City. Worked there after I graduated in 2008 for 3 years, and ESPN was one of our clients. So got to know the folks at ESPN that way, and when the position became available, got the heads up that it was becoming available and was able to get in just through the connections that I'd already made that way. But I loved working. I don't know how many PR. Do we have any PR majors in the room? Oh, excellent. I loved working at an agency. It was a fantastic place to get a start and really helped me be able to work in-house somewhere a lot better. Just having an idea of, I worked on so many different clients, the Harlem Globetrotters, Chunky Campbell's Soup, a wide array of different things, and it really helped me be able to prove that I was well-rounded and could do a lot of different things and bring a lot of different elements to the table. We at ESPN in our communications department hire a lot of folks that have that kind of experience versus someone that necessarily comes out of the sports world already.
My path is weird, but I started at ESPN basically 1 year out of UT. We have the production assistant position is the entry-level position on SportsCenter. And it's a little different now than it was then because the company was so much smaller. But back then, you started as a temporary PA, and you had 6 months to prove that you deserved to stick around. And at the end of 6 months, there was kind of this, Justice League panel of coordinator producers that met in a room and decided whether the goal was to get kept, whether or not you were kept or not. And as a production assistant, you ran prompter, you ripped scripts, you cut highlights for SportsCenter, and your responsibilities would grow, as you went up. It could be, Keith Olbermann at the time was a SportsCenter anchor. I used to drive him to work every day because he has vertigo and can't drive. So I would pick him up and drive him to work. It was a catch-all job. And I did that for 6 months and then eventually got promoted in. And I was the only Southerner. The only Southerners in the company in 1994 were me, Reese Davis. We had an editor, and Stu Scott. That was it. And so Reese and I both started around, they just started ESPN 2. That's how long ago this was. And Reese and I had started at the same time. And Reese was from Alabama, and I was from Rockingham, North Carolina. And they go, well, you guys know a lot about NASCAR. And we both went, yeah. And but it worked. Reese hosted our nightly motorsports show for years, RPM Tonight, and I worked on that show, and it got us moved back south. But the goal was always eventually to start working college football. And now Reese is the man, and I'm getting to do a little bit too. So no, but they started the ESPN magazine in 1998, and they called the RPM Tonight office because they wanted to do an IndyCar story. And they were just looking for information. I go, I'll write the story. And eventually I started writing more and more and more, and then, and I've worked there full time now.
Gracie, as a female in the sports industry, do you feel like you have to prove yourself? And if so, how do you prove yourself to show that you do know what you're talking about and, have it, build a platform? Because I know, I followed you on Twitter months and months ago, and I know that you have proven yourself, but how can you, explain how to do that?
That's a great question. We're really lucky at ESPN. We have a lot of females that work there, and so I've never felt like I stood out because I was a girl. I will say that people don't notice my outfits the same way that they do at other places, which does hurt my feelings, but that's fine. I think that with hard work and being able to prove that you can hang in there and that you're bringing your own skill set to the table is definitely the way that the path that I've gotten to where I've gotten. It's tough. It's tough not just in the sports world, but in the industry overall, in just in the working world. But there's a lot of great females out there that are paving the way for everyone to come in and do really great things.
And I'll say this too, and again, my frame of reference is 20 years. It's stunning how much ESPN has changed in that regard. When I went to work there in the summer of '94, we had 2 female SportsCenter anchors. It was Robin Roberts and Linda Cohn. That was it. And granted, we did a lot. We only did 3 SportsCenters a day back then, as opposed to 24 hours a day. But even in production, even when we started ESPN 2, so we got 2 networks now, and producers like in the big chair, show producers for SportsCenter other shows, maybe 2 women, and I think we had 1 female director. That was it. And now you walk. I don't go back to Connecticut much because I'm on the road, but when I go back, that's the one thing that blows my mind is every single department now, and nobody thinks about it. It's amazing. It wasn't that long ago, but it's amazing to think about how much that's changed, and I'm curious to see how much it changes 10 years from now. It's going to be a lot easier than it was. Certainly a lot easier than it was in 1994.
Yeah, I think I was actually surprised that it's just a non-issue.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it used to, I'm not going to say it was an issue, but in 1994, I'll say this, it was a sea of lonely single guys. And anytime any woman, girl was hired out of college, like as a production assistant, everybody would embarrass themselves because it was the only girl they'd been around and forever. That's what a different world it was now. Whereas opposed to now, it's just like I say, it's not even, nobody thinks anything of it. But it was embarrassing actually 20 years ago.
Yes, sir.
This is for both of you. How do you best respond to people who say that social media hinders or destroys relationships?
In what way would you think that they're being hindered or destroyed? In the fact that, like, face-to-face? Okay. I do think the title of Ryan's presentation was very fitting. There is nothing that beats face-to-face interaction. There's just nothing that will ever come as good as that is. We actually just got new phones at ESPN, and I got mine 2 weeks ago. When you dial, sorry about that. Yours is coming, I'm sure. I don't know what the name of it is. I'll get back to you on that. But it has a video screen, and as soon as you call someone, the video turns on. So you are automatically, whether you would like to be or not, in a video conversation with whoever is on the other side of that phone. It changes the way your conversation goes. And let me tell you, it changes conference calls a lot. You used to be able to get a lot done during a conference call, and now that people can see that you are checking your email and not listening to what they're saying on the phone, it changes the game. But so to that point, it obviously, like with everything, it has pros and cons. The pros do outweigh the cons if you can manage it correctly. The biggest challenge it's been in my own personal life is just the fact that now we live in a 24/7 world, and something can break. Some of our biggest issues have broken over the middle of the night. And I do sleep, and so that is a problem. I would like for everyone to get off of Twitter, Facebook, and everything at 6 o'clock. That would be ideal. It does not happen. And unfortunately, most of sports happen in the evening hours. So it certainly has posed up that's been the biggest hindrance it's had on my life, is just being able to manage work-life balance and have a life outside of work, but still be able to react to anything at any time that you might need to, because you just never know when that time will come.
Just look up from your phone. That's the big thing. I'm the worst about this. When I first got on Twitter, and even back in Facebook, when Twitter didn't exist, I got so obsessed with it that I would cover a college football game and would catch myself not having seen a quarter of football with it happening right here. And the reason is because I was too busy looking at the Twitter feed. And I'm trying to get information or make a cute comment, and I'm tracking other people in the room or what other people are saying outside. But the biggest thing is just look up. And when I said look up from your phone, my daughter's 9. We were having this conversation upstairs. My daughter's 9, and we're being really hard on her about limited time electronics. And I keep telling her, as a writer, you got to keep your eyes up, because it's all out here. It's not down here. That's the biggest challenge for me is looking at the phone when it's time to look at the phone. But even when I'm in the kitchen, my first instinct when I get up in the morning is not to fix my daughter's breakfast, is to check Twitter and see what happened during the night. And I got to feed my daughter, so I do that. But the point of it is I think you can let it destroy relationships, but you can also let it build relationships, like I talked about, if you do it the right way. You just can't be all in 100% all the time. It's a magical thing, but it's like anything else. It can tear it down if that's all you do.
Thank you guys so much for speaking. But before we end, we do have 2 giveaways. So whoever has a sign-in sheet, can you hold it up? I hope everyone signed in. Do you want to do one giveaway then? What do you want to do? What? Okay. Well, how do you want to do the? I mean, we have. Okay. Okay, Ryan and Gracie, we're gonna put you on the spot. Can you guys do 2 kind of hard questions? These are 2 very big giveaways. I'm not gonna say what they are until you guys ask the questions. But so something that's relative to social media or ESPN, and we'll pick our 2 winners that way. I know I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Can someone tell me how many Twitter followers the ESPN account has, the ESPN brand account? Without looking it up. Eyes up. Closest guess wins. Price is Right rules.
Guy in the hat.
Oh, that's good. I wish we had that many.
Yeah.
No.
Right here.
No.
No. Guy in blue.
Yes.
You are the winner of a autographed football from Butch Jones.
What?
Way to go.
Wow, I could have guessed for that.
You got the next question.
All right, Ryan's got the next question for our next autographed item.
All right, I'll go NASCAR on you. I'm going to throw you a curveball here. It's actually not that hard. What NASCAR driver recently joined Twitter and went from like 20,000 followers to almost 1 million in like 3 days? Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Jr. had promised us he was sitting on an account. It's at Dale Jr., which he doesn't need any help. I don't know why I'm promoting it, but he had said for years he locked that account down. He's a digital guy. His phone's ridiculous, and he smart guy. But he had sat on that account for a couple years and never tweeted. And he said if he won the Daytona 500, he'd tweet. And from victory lane with the trophy, and literally it was like within 3 or 4 days he'd gained like 500,000 followers. I was like, you jerk.
Great. Well, he won a autographed basketball from Holly Warwick. So congratulations. Everyone that won, please stay behind so we can get your photo. And for everyone that did not win, don't worry. We have coupons in the back for a free Chick-fil-A sandwich, so you are not going to leave empty-handed. And let's give both of our presenters a round of applause. All right, well, thank you guys so much for attending. Like I said, we do have the meet and greet with Paul Feinbaum at 12:30, so make sure you're up there. The line will start promptly, so be there.